Hello and welcome back into another basketball preview video, and we stay in Nashua, Plainfield. This time we turn our sights to the boys side of things. If you have not seen the previous videos, including the Nashua Plainfield girls video, that and all the others are on my Twitter page. You can find me at Taylor from K-O-A-T-A-Y-L-O-R from K-W-A-Y, or you can also just search on YouTube if you happen to be not on YouTube at this very moment watching this video. Just search for Taylor Knits over there, and you'll be able to find the videos that way as well. But let's take a look at what this Nashua Plainfield boys team can do this season on the basketball court. First, of course, we got to look back to last season in Nashua Plainfield. They finished 9-12, just a couple of games below 500, and the season ended, on a tight one. 58-50 was the final score against AGWSR as the Cougars knocked them out of play. And the season ended on a sour note. 5 straight games they lost to end the season. So, I mean, that tells you they were 9-7 at one point, and things just sort of fell apart there at the end until fall to 9-12 at the end of the season. They averaged 54.9 points a game. 55 points a game is not terrible. It's not incredible, I wouldn't say, but it's not terrible, not by a long shot. That's a respectable number there. And an interesting tactic that the boys have done on quick stats, whether it's intentional or not, they have not listed turnovers. So their assist-to-turnover ratio, according to quick stats, is 242-0, which is extremely impressive, and I question how you would lose not turning the ball over. That obviously is not the actual ratio, and it's tough to comment on when I don't know what that number is. My guess is that the turnovers were a little bit higher than the assists, although, again, I don't know for sure. They did average 28.7 rebounds per game last year. That number could go up. That number could go up a little bit. They also scored more points in the second quarter and the fourth quarter, which tells me they had just a little bit of trouble getting going at the start of games and when they came out of halftime. And I think perhaps there was a game or two in there where maybe that slow start maybe cost them the game. So I think maybe trying to figure out whether it's a different way to warm up, whether it's a different message, whether it's coming out a little bit earlier or a little bit later, something along those lines. If they can, and maybe it's just strictly a mental thing. They didn't quite get it going early on. Whatever it is, if they can get that fixed, I mean, that right there could get you another win or two on the season if you come out rearing to go straight from tip or straight from the start of the second half. That's an interesting one. And another extremely interesting stat about this Nashua Plainfield team from last year. Over the entire course of the season, game 1 to the very last game, the points for, points against, dead even. Dead even. Not a point between them. That's unbelievable. Obviously, that would tend to tell you that theoretically, they should have been exactly 500. That's if you're just a strictly numbers person, they would be 500. But a rational person would say, okay, you're right around 500, and they weren't too far off of it at 9-12, but you would expect maybe to be a little bit closer than that. So that's last season. Let's take a look at the players, that they lost off of that team last year, the seniors. There were 4 of them. There's one big name that kind of sticks out to me anyhow, larger than the others, and that is Dayton Hanson. Dayton was a very, very good player. I really liked watching him play. I liked watching him shoot. He was a very good shooter. He averaged 13.7 points a game. That led the way. In fact, he was the only one averaging double figures last year for the Huskies. He also averaged 4.6 rebounds a game. That's pretty solid. He also had 37 assists in 21 games last season, although I don't think that he's a guy necessarily you want it to give up the ball too often. So you're not as worried about that number. But what I'm trying to get at is he's gone. So that production that he put up, which was impressive, by the way, made 53 three-pointer shot, basically 40%, nearly 40%. Actually, it's right on 39%, but pretty close to 40% from beyond the arc from 136 attempts. That's dang good. So how do you make up for that production that Dayton Hanson was able to put up last year? That's the question. So who's gonna make up for that? Well, there's three guys coming back that I think could be really the core of this team and could make them very, very strong. The first of which we'll start with the two elder ones, and we'll talk about a little bit of a younger guy a little bit later on. But two seniors will be seniors this year, and Luke Serwinski and Isaac Chambers. Serwinski 7.3 points per game last year. Chambers 6.4. If they both bump those numbers up just a little bit, that's big. That's going to be huge for them. They both did well on the glass as well, with Chambers pulling down 5.6 rebounds a game and Serwinski at 5.3. So those two guys who were 1 and 2, as I mentioned, in rebounding, they're going to have to be that again this year, I do believe. And even if they could up those numbers a little bit as well, I think that'd be good because, as we mentioned before, the rebounding number as a team could have been improved upon. And again, controlling the glass obviously goes a long ways to you winning and or losing, and I guess not or losing a game. So those two guys I think are going to play big roles for Nashua Plainfield this year. And those two, along with Austin Bieneman. Now, he's just a sophomore this year. He averaged 9.1 points a game. I've heard a ton of great things about Austin Bieneman. From what I've heard, he's kind of a basketball nut, and that's huge. He, as I mentioned, averaged 9.1 points a game. I think it's realistic to expect him to be closer to 15 points a game because I think your freshman year you get that first taste whenever you get your first taste of varsity ball, I think you're still sort of learning sort of the other dynamics that go along with playing this game at this level. And I think that second year of your varsity play, I think you just sort of relax just a little bit. You know what's coming. You know what's about to happen. Things along those lines. And so, I think his numbers are going to jump up. I'm honestly expecting a big-time season out of Austin Bieneman. I think at the end of the season, he's going to be a first-team All-K-Way performer. I really, really do. He's a very good talent. Again, just a sophomore this year. I think maybe most of his numbers, the majority of his numbers, could shoot right on up. I think he's got that type of talent, and it certainly will be fun to see what he is, in fact, able to do this season. But I think those three, Bieneman, Serwinski, and Chambers, kind of the core three, if you will. And it doesn't mean that they all have to be, hitting on all cylinders every single night. It can be just two of them. It can even be just one of them, so long as the other two are doing some of the other things, whether it be assisting the guy that's scoring or just locking down the other team's best score, or whatever the case may be. If they can get all three going, obviously that's great, but just one of them going and the others doing something else, playing well, because they all are very, very versatile. And I think there are a lot of teams that would like to have a core like Bieneman, Serwinski, and Chambers. Now, there are some other players as well that saw time last year that, again, obviously will see time this year. John Kroll, who averaged 2.9 points per game. He'll be a senior this year. I would imagine that he'll have a decently sized role this year as well. I think he's certainly another name to keep in mind. Levi Linder as well, and some others along the way as well. Obviously, there's probably some youngsters that I don't know much about that probably will have a role to play this year for Nashua Plainfield. And again, coming off that 9-12 season last year, they ended the season with a 5-game losing streak. No doubt that left a bad taste in their mouth. And I'm sure that every player that was on that basketball team is just itching to get back out on the basketball court and prove that was an anomaly. And that's not the team that they are. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think there's a good shot that this Nashua Plainfield team has an outstanding season. There are some very winnable games in the conference that they play in. It's a gigantic conference, but it's a conference that I think they can win a lot of games in. And so with that in mind, the rating that I have for these guys, if you're unaware of how the rating system works, a 1 would be a state title contender, a 2 would be a state tournament contender, a 3 is a team that's looking to win more games than lose, and if things fall right, make a run in postseason play, and a 4 is a rebuilding team. And I think this Nashua Plainfield boys team is a 3. I think they're a 3. I think they're solidly in that 3 range. I think they should expect to be over 500 this year, and I think that should be a goal, but maybe not the goal. I think they've got the ability. Again, I think they fit perfectly, actually, as a 3. I think they're a team that should expect to be over 500. They should win more games than they lose. And then it's about sort of matchups in the postseason. If they win enough games to get themselves a path that's navigable, how do you say that word? Navigatable? That they can navigate. I think that there's a chance. I don't think it's a probability necessarily. I don't think there's a great chance, but there's a chance they can make a deep run into postseason play. I don't want to say they're going to get to the state tournament. I don't even want to say they're going to be a step away, but I think they've got a chance to be dangerous enough to make a run. And if shots are falling, if the defense is playing well, if things are ticking right along, you never know. I think it's a very exciting season for Nashua Plainfield boys basketball. And I think if you're a Huskies fan, you better get out and watch these Huskies play this year. And, if there's games that we're calling, because we're going to be calling a number of games for Nashua Plainfield. If there's games that we're calling, you better be tuning in as well, because you need to keep up with this Huskies team. I think they're going to have a very fun, interesting, successful season. So make sure you do keep an eye on them and then keep an ear on them when we're calling their games. Now, that's going to do it for me here in this one. And until next time, I am Taylor Nitz. Okay, bye.